Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Awaken to Happiness Now Global Series. Thank you so much for being here with us today. If you're new to me, Shefaliburns, new to my channel, new to the show, the Awaken to Happiness Now Global Series, thank you so much for being here. If you're watching live with us, welcome, welcome. If you're watching on the replay on YouTube, welcome, welcome. It is my deepest wish, desire, and intention to bring to you these amazing, wonderful speakers who are sharing their wisdom, their teachings, their experiences, their processes, their healings, etc., so that we can all thrive, so that we can all awaken to happiness now. So if you are watching on YouTube, please do subscribe so you can take advantage of all the current shows, all the previous shows, all the shows coming up. I think there's 550 something there. So there's a lot of wisdom, a lot of healing, a lot of information there for you. And so today we are talking with my dear friend Jennifer Nieto, and we're going to be talking about healing the father wound. So inner child reparenting and restoring your connection to the divine. And so some of what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about what is the father wound, signs of a father wound, and how it might show up in your life, how the father wound is connected to God's source, the healing journey that we're going to be doing. We're going to talk about that, the inner child reparenting, energetic release. We're going to be participating in a group meditation, healing the father wound through the divine loving self. So I'm excited. This is a topic that we don't normally talk about. I don't think it's ever come up talking about the father wound. The mother wound, yes, but not really ever talked about the father wound, even though I have had the intention of doing that myself, but things happen and it never happened. So I'm glad we're doing this today. And I think Father's Day is next weekend. So maybe not this weekend coming up, but the following weekend. So it's perfect timing. So for those of you who may not know Jennifer, she was on our show a couple of times now, and we love having her. It's always a high vibe show. It's always so much wonderful information and healing at the same time. Jennifer is an empathic, intuitive life coach, a master EFT and energy healing practitioner. She has a master's degree in psychology, marriage, and family therapy, is a credentialed school counselor, and is trained as a trauma specialist. She has worked with all ages, from children to adults, for over 20 years. Jennifer is certified in energy psychology as well as energy medicine healing modalities such as EFT, TFT, NLP, Rouhani, and angel healer, integrative chakra therapy, Bach flower remedies, sound healing, and quantum touch to bring harmony and balance for your soul's rebirth. So we're going to talk to Jennifer about this wonderful topic, the father wound, and how that relates to us and what we may be going through right now. So please join me in welcoming Jennifer back to the show. Jennifer, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm truly honored to be in this space with you and your beautiful community. And yes, I really wanted to talk with all of you today about something that is really close to my heart, and that is the father wound healing, and how that healing can really radically transform your connection with God and with Source and even with love itself. And so I do want to mention that throughout this conversation, I'm going to be using words like God and Source and the divine when referring to a higher power, but that I encourage you to replace the word with the one that you most resonate with. And even when I mention the word father, that could be in reference to your actual father or to any other father figure you've had in your life. Okay, so I want to just preface that before we begin. And so that being
Awesome.
said,
Thank you.
yeah.
And I just want to say really quickly, since we're talking about healing, and I mentioned healing a couple of times, we are not medical practitioners. So if you do have any issues, psychological, mental, emotional, physical, etc., please do see a medical practitioner in that field. Okay, we are just sharing our experiences, our information, etc. Okay, so again, Jennifer, this is a topic that we don't normally talk about, right? We talk about mother wound, we talk about inner child healing, but we don't necessarily ever mention that much the father wound.
Right.
Interesting, right?
Yeah. And that's why I felt like this topic would be important to talk about, especially because, like, right now, a lot of my spiritual friends and my clients have been triggered, especially with all the display of masculine energy that's being displayed in politics right now. And then for us, Father's Day is coming up here in the US. And so, I did want to, just to start us off and say, like, talking about the father wound isn't from a place of blame, right? It's really about remembering so we can reclaim all those parts of ourselves that we had to let go of in order to feel safe and loved and protected. And so as we reclaim those parts of ourselves, then we're really able to just notice how much the father wound has impacted not only how we feel about ourselves, but all the choices we've made in our life. You think about any struggles you may have had with your health or your relationships or your career, finances, but also even our ability to connect with the divine and expand our own spiritual growth. And that's because having a father wound isn't just our personal bond with the parent, right? It's also how we learn to interact with authority and with love. And sorry, I saw your little transcribing thing, authority and love and discipline, but also love, right? It's how we start to relate. And then these experiences end up leaving a mark on us, right? When the masculine energy in our life, who's, usually our father, right? That's representing was either emotionally distant or they were missing from our lives, or maybe they were really critical, or you just didn't feel safe. And I've just found that these early experiences then often shape our relationship with the divine. And then for many of us, the father wound becomes a spiritual wound where we feel abandoned or blocked from God. And then once again, we don't feel loved and protected on our spiritual path. And so for our spiritual seekers like ourselves, right, we can definitely impact how we feel about ourselves and our ability to share our light out into the world and carry out our soul's mission. And that's why I thought it would be helpful today to talk about how the father wound shows up in our lives through patterns like self-doubt and fear of rejection and even to people pleasing, right? And how we can heal through child work, reparenting, and spiritual reconnection. And so, Shefali, if it's okay with you, before I go more in depth into the father wound, I thought it might be nice if we just begin with a short meditation to ground ourselves and allow us to be in our heart space.
Yep, absolutely. I was going to ask you about that too. So perfect timing.
Okay. So with that, I invite everybody here to just close your eyes. And if you want, you can even place your hands over your heart and just take a few deep cleansing breaths in through your nose and slowly out through your mouth. And I want you to just let you know that our breath is our connection to source. And with each breath that you take, just really allow yourself to become more centered and grounded in your body. And I want you to know that there are so many beautiful beings of light here today to help support us and to shower us with their love. And as I tune in, before we even started, I could already feel the angels and the ascended masters. I work closely with the unicorns and the Council of Light, and I could just feel all of them coming in. And there's such an honoring and a sacredness when this happens. And with each one of you, you've also brought in your divine spiritual team. And the message that really wants to come through is that they're here to support you at this time. They're here to hold sacred space, but they really want you to know that you have the power to heal yourself within you. And with that, I just want you to take another breath in and really absorb those words, that you are a powerful being of light, that you are a spark of the divine. And with your next breath in, I want you to imagine now that from your heart, beautiful rays of light in the form of roots are now connecting you with your earth star below your feet. And they'll go past your earth star and now connect you all the way to the heart of Mother Earth. And I want you to notice what Mother Earth looks like to you. For me, she's always this beautiful sunset with the vibrant colors of oranges and reds. But take a moment to notice how she appears for you. And then I want you to take another breath in and just feel the love that she has for you. And as you do this, now allow her nurturing energy to start to come up your roots into your body and allow it to go all the way up to your heart. And as her beautiful energy starts to touch your heart, just notice how your heart begins to expand. And the light within your heart becomes brighter and brighter and brighter. Until you notice that a beam of light is now going to burst out from the top of your heart. It's going to go all the way up through your central channel and connect you up to your soul star. And from your soul star that's above your head, just take a moment and feel this connection as you're now being showered with beautiful divine light codes of wisdom, of knowledge, and of remembrance of why you are here on earth at this time. And as you do this, I want you to take all that energy in and then also notice that your light's going to expand now past your soul star all the way up to the heart of Source. Remember, Source is an ocean of love, and we are all part of this vast ocean. And so feel the love and support that is already here for you from Source and from your divine spiritual team. And then I want you to bring down all that love and sparkly energy from Source back down into your soul star and then all the way down into your heart. Let it mix and merge with the earth energies. And as you do this, a beautiful figure 8 starts to form from your heart down to the heart of Mother Earth, and then from Mother Earth's heart back to yours, and then up to the heart of Source, and then back to your heart. You are now being connected as above and so below. And with this connection, a beautiful rainbow light starts to grow in your heart now. Allow it to expand and connect to the hearts of everyone here on this call. And together we're creating a huge vortex of healing, of love, and of support. And now I want you to take another deep cleansing breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And when you are ready with no rush, you can open your eyes and come back to me. And Shefali, just notice how you and your audience are feeling now.
Definitely more stable. Oh, I was going to say more stable, more calm, more present, and at the same time, yeah, just peaceful, much more peaceful.
Wonderful. Yeah. As I tuned in, I could tell there were so many different energies before we started this talk of people who had different experiences with their father. And so I just thought that would be a nice way just to bring us back into our heart before we begin.
Absolutely. I love it. And we all have a relationship with a father figure. And for some of us it's great. For some of us it's not so great. But again, what you were saying at the beginning, Jennifer, it's not about blaming, and it's not because for all of us in our spiritual growth and evolution, we have to let go of that the blame, right? It's all about, all these experiences are teaching us about ourselves and helping us to grow and expand in our consciousness. And so I know for myself, I had a good relationship with my dad. I still do, but I think I didn't have the trust. Like there was that was missing, So,
Yeah.
might still be. And so that is one of my issues that I'm dealing with in this lifetime is trust in myself, trust in the universe, trust in God, just trust in people, blah, blah, blah. Right. So it's a big one for me.
No, that's a big one for a lot of us. And later on, I'll be sharing more about that. And I'm glad you brought that up, though, because there are so many different ways that the father wound could show up in our life, right? And the way that it plays out. So,
Yeah, exactly. So for those of you who may not have been here at the beginning, we're going to be talking about what is the father wound, right? So it's really an interesting topic because we never really focus on the father. It's because most of us on these calls are women. We tend to talk about the women in our lives, our mothers and so on, and mother figures, right? We don't normally talk about um, father figures. And so even though I may have had an issue with trust with my dad, but like um, the father figure archetype is very strong in my life. And I have others that I do trust completely, right? So it's interesting, right? So I have trust with other people and but just maybe with growing up not as much with my dad kind of thing, right?
oh, definitely, definitely, because it's different ways it could play out. So, yeah.
Yeah. So so again, if you can just go over again what is the father wound again, and how is it showing up in our lives, and what can we do about it now?
Yes, definitely.
It's about accepting and healing, so it's never about blame at all, but or criticizing, because I always think, what, they did the best they could with the tools that they had at the time for them. Sometimes people are not capable of things that we expect them to do and be, right? Sometimes they're just not capable, right? And they don't have that capacity, etc. But we don't know, we don't have that awareness when we're little. we, when we're children, we don't have that awareness, like, oh, they don't have the tools. But when we get older, it's like, okay, yeah, so our inner child for sure needs some, healing and parenting for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So when I talk about the father wound, I like to talk about it from an emotional and a spiritual lens, right? So emotionally, the father wound, what I say, it's the energetic imprint that's left when we didn't receive either consistent love or protection or guidance. For some people, it could have been validation or even having structure. But for most of us, it's, lacking that emotional presence from our father. And it's important to point out once again, that the father wound doesn't always come from abuse or overt trauma. Sometimes it really does come from what was missing in our lives. And so, just to give you an example, that could have been you had a father who was physically present, but maybe emotionally absent. Or you had a father who only gave you love when you performed well or succeeded in something, right? Or your father could have been really unpredictable or harsh and maybe deeply criticized you a lot. And then for some people, it was really just that he was completely absent for your life. And spiritually, the father wound can affect how you relate to divine masculine energy and to source itself. And that's because many of us unconsciously project our earthly father's traits onto God or source. And so to give you an example, once again, if you had a father who was very cold and punishing or distant, then you can now internalize that energy into your connection with the divine. And when we have a father wound, then that can really shape our identity. It can affect our relationships. It can affect our self-worth. And our overall mental health is how I'll just kind of umbrella it right now. And then so often we carry this into adulthood. And I find, like, to others on the outside, this can look like success or independence. But for a lot of us on the inside, I found that there's often this really deep, unspoken ache, and it was kind of a whisper, like for myself, right? Just in the back of your head, like, where was he when I needed him? Or why wasn't I enough for him to, and we can fill in the blank, for him to love me, for him to see me, for him to stay, or for him to protect me, right? It'll be a little bit different for people, or it could be all of those. And I just want you to know that's the child within us that's still waiting to be seen and heard and loved. And so once again, like you said, the father wound isn't about blaming when we talk about it. It's really about understanding the imprint that was left on your soul. And because that's the way we learn to relate to your father, often becomes the same way we end up relating to God and to love and to authority. And then when that happens, we start to internalize messages like love is earned and not given, right? Or this idea that if you mess up or if you make a mistake, that now you're going to be punished or rejected. I found that people will say, like, I have to stay strong or be strong in some way, right? Because weakness or being in the feminine energy or the softness was considered weakness. And that you have to do more or be more, right? In order to be worthy. And then when this happens, we continue some of this. And as an adult, now we're trying to earn love in order to feel worthy. And we can start to distrust spiritual authority, right? Because once again, the father wound distorts our relationship with the divine masculine. And then we can also fear judgment from God, right? So even though you might consciously believe that God is loving, right? Emotionally, you might still feel really distant or abandoned by God. And I know personally, that's how I felt when I was younger. And that's why I feel like this wound runs really deep. And for a lot of us spiritual seekers and empaths like myself, this wound doesn't just sit in our mind, right? It really does live with our inner child. It lives in our nervous system. And then it starts to impact our connection to the divine. So Shefali, I don't know if there's anything else you would like to add around what the father wound is.
Well, it's interesting. I was staying at my son's place for the past 2 weeks, and my daughter just came back from Singapore, and so I actually saw her 3 times in the past 2 weeks, right? And at one point I asked her, I said, "So how's your dad doing?" And she's like, "Who's that?" I said, "Okay, like what do you mean?" She goes, "Yeah, Mom, like he never calls me. I never we don't talk, and like she tells me everything, and she never talks to him, or he doesn't call her, or whatever. But it's like, so I had the father wound for sure, of abandonment, right? Because my dad was never around. Now she feels that she has the same sort of, it's slightly different, right?
Right.
So does the father wound and the mother wound, I mean, obviously it can be passed down through the lineage as well, right? Through the DNA and lineage as well, right?
Exactly.
But it's just interesting how um like when we were together, I always, and when we separated, etc., I always tried really hard to make sure that they stayed connected, that they got together all the time, that just because me and her dad were no longer together had nothing to do with them, right?
Right.
That was my thing. Like, he's not my husband, but he'll always be your father. But I don't know. It's like for me, like, I can't comprehend that. Like, how could you not be involved in your children's lives? Because I obviously am very much so in my kids' lives, right? But so I can't understand how um he is not, so it's hard for me to understand this father wound piece, because it's like, yes, I know my dad was never around when I was growing up, but my ex-husband, he was always around, but not emotionally, I guess, right? Not communicating, not talking, not sharing, not doing things together, kind of thing. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, it's the
I'm
experience
not like
we
that at
have.
all, obviously. So
It's definitely
I'm not hovering, but it's like can kind of almost be like that, but
Yeah. I
it's
mean, it's
weird.
definitely the experience that we feel, right? So, it's like many people can have the exact same experience, but everyone interprets it differently, and it's how you internalize the experience. So, like you said, he was there physically, but he wasn't there emotionally. And as you know, we're all energy beings, so your daughter felt
Yeah,
that. She didn't feel
yeah,
that. And
yeah. Because I don't know. It's just strange, and it's like, I try not to judge him and whatever, but sometimes when he does something really stupid, like when he should be there and he's not, then I get mad. It's like, what, like, ah! it's like it's like I don't get it, right? Because like I go 100%, 110, like I'll do anything, right, for my kids. If they need something, I'm there 100%. And so, like, I would expect that the father would do the same, but again, you should never have expectations, right? But
I mean,
his parents were always there for him, always there for him.
yeah, and it's true. I mean, we invite people, and I'm going to share with the group right now, about how the father wound can show up and why you might be experiencing some of these things. But as you know, like, experiences or people come in our lives to let us know that there's something that needs healing, right?
Mhm.
So he's such
Yeah,
a stark difference from you, right? And it's really hard, being an empath and sensitive, it's hard when I see people be cruel to
yeah,
other
of course.
animals, right? Like, to me, it's like, oh my gosh, right? And then I have to look within me and say, okay, what's that part of me that needs some more healing, right? That needs some more love. Like, where did I leave myself? So, yeah. All
Thank
right.
you for
So
that.
yeah.
Yeah, well, because if I'm reacting, I mean, there's a part inside of me that needs some work and some healing and some love.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. So so I that's a great lesson from Jennifer here. If you are reacting or being triggered at all by anything, it means that there's something within you that needs to be looked at and worked on, or healed, or loved, or shone a light on.
Exactly.
I sometimes forget that. So thank you.
Well, it's okay. I'm going to share some stories with you today too, just to kind of reinforce that, because we all go through it, right? And I'm going to show you, we're going to talk about right now, some of the signs, right? And that we're not even aware of them. They could be so subtle. And so I wanted to just bring some consciousness to it. And so as I highlight a few of these that I feel are pretty common with the people that I work with, I would love for anybody here that's with us today just to go ahead and comment in the chat and let me know if any of these sound like you or if they apply to you. But one way that the father wound could start to show up in your life is that you attract, what we say is emotionally unavailable or controlling partners, right? So you might actually be someone who draws people in who don't fully see you or hear you or respect you. And when you are in relationships, once again, you fall into this idea that you have to earn their love. And this pattern is actually happening because it mirrors that inconsistent love or lack of safety that you may have had with your father. And I find this one is a really big one for a lot of us spiritual seekers, that we end up attracting people or experiences in our life to help us heal the father wound, among many other things, right? Remember, everything is happening for us. So another way it can show up is if you feel, like I was talking about, that you have to prove yourself all the time. So in essence, once again, you're trying to earn your worth by your actions, and you end up chasing achievement. You can try and chase success, in every area of your life, or perfection. And once again, you're doing all of this in order to feel worthy. And other people on the outside could easily praise you. Oh, you're so driven. Oh, you're so highly motivated, or whatever term they want to give you. But you never feel like it's enough, right? There's always this like hole or well, and you just kind of feel empty. And so I really find that this stems from childhood, for when you were trying to win your father's love. You were trying to win his approval or his praise through your actions. And then we end up carrying that same pattern into adulthood, which then brings us to something that I refer to as emotional safety, right? Where you might be someone who appears to be really strong or put together on the outside, but then internally, like I said, you feel pretty weak. And you may struggle to express your own feelings like grief or fear or sadness, because when you do, you tend to feel the energy of shame, right? That it wasn't okay to do that. And this happens if you didn't feel safe expressing your emotions around your father as a child. And so then you learn to shut them down in order to survive. And if that sounds like you, then please give yourself some love and some compassion, because you did the best that you could at the time. Remember, you were just a child. And I find that a lot of times what happens then is that you tend to overthink everything, and you second guess yourself. And I know I've definitely been there. That was me all the time. And you can just notice, for yourself, if you are someone who really struggles to trust your own decisions. You might find yourself even asking advice from other people, because what I hear all the time from the people I work with is that you're either afraid you're going to get it wrong, or that you're going to make a mistake, right? It's such a black and white way of thinking. And this may have come if you had a father who was really critical of you or judgmental of you. And you could have even lacked positive guidance, like you never received any from your father growing up as a child. And I find that when that happens, then that we have a really hard time, setting boundaries. And setting really healthy boundaries can be especially difficult if you're someone who deeply feels other people's emotions, and you don't know where your emotions end and others people's begin. And not only do you feel them, you actually feel responsible for them on some level. And this is what happens. Then you can go into people pleasing mode in order to avoid conflict, right? And you can feel really guilty whenever you do say no. And once again, this can happen if you had a father or a father figure in your life who either didn't protect you, or they made love feel really conditional, right? And so when that happens, like if you really had that growing up, then you can now have a fear of leadership or power. So I want, people here in your audience to notice, like, are you someone who either shrinks from responsibility because you don't trust yourself? Or on the other side, do you tend to try and over control everything because nobody protected you or guided you as a child? And if this is you, then once again, please have compassion for yourself, and just know that both of these responses are actually trauma responses to not feeling safe around your father or a father figure. And then if you did experience that now as an adult, you can either fear male authority figures, or kind of on the flip side, you end up seeking their approval endlessly, right? It's like that well, again, that we can just never quite fill up. And so you're constantly looking for their approval. And Shefali, before I shared the last way, that a father wound might show up in someone's life. Were you or your audience able to relate to any of the ones that I've shared so far?
Oh, absolutely. And people are posting in the commenting in the chat as well about that, and it's interesting how there are different ways that the father wound shows up, and we each experience it differently. So I'm sure, like for myself, you know, I might have experienced abandonment, but my sister may not have, because you know, my dad was there for her, kind of thing. But she may have something different. I never got praise, but my dad spoiled her all the time because she was the littlest one, kind of thing. So, in a family dynamic, siblings are gonna have different experiences too, right?
Oh, of course. My parents divorced when I was 4, and my parents were very different than you and your ex-husband were. Like, they didn't talk. We were the go-to, the children, my brother and I. And my experience was very different than my older brother's experience.
Yep.
Definitely
Yep.
felt more praise and loved and support, where I did not. So, complete black
Yep.
and white, but we still had the same parents, right? So that can definitely
Yeah.
happen.
And Karen saying, I relate to much of what was said. Tina, all of them. Lots of people. And there's a question: is there any connection between an emotionally absent dad and me attracting abusive relationships? My dad was not abusive, just not there.
Yeah. And, I just mentioned that at the very beginning, right? That you attract emotionally unavailable or controlling partners, right? Because when they're not there, we're still looking for that love, and we're willing
Yeah.
to take it in the form that it comes, even if it's not the healthiest, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm still looking too for a healthy relationship, male relationship. So I don't want somebody like my dad, because like, just not a good husband, right? Um, Not a good husband, an absentee father, blah blah blah. But I don't want somebody like that, and I don't want to. I remember saying growing up that I don't want to end up like my mom, you know. So it's just those kinds of things that you see, and you're like, yeah, no, that's not for me. But then we end up having relationships that are not what we want either.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I could totally relate to that. I had all those comments that you said. And so for me, I was that person that was highly motivated or driven, right? And I was completely independent. And, I knew like I definitely didn't want to experience that, or I didn't want a man like that. But that also meant that I wasn't in my heart space a lot of times, right? I was
Yeah,
making decisions out of fear instead of love, right?
exactly.
But I want people
Yep.
to understand that, the more that we clean up within ourselves and we heal our heart, come back to our truth, then we're able, since we're all energy beings, to really attract what it is that we do desire, what it is that our soul is calling from us.
Yeah.
We,
And so, can you talk a little bit more about the how the father wound is connected to God's source? I'm
yeah.
still
Oh, sure. I'm going to
curious
do,
about that.
I have kind of a big section on that. And that's actually the
Yeah.
last one on this part that I wanted to say is that disconnection from the divine, or having a fear of God. So once again, even though consciously you may believe in a loving God, emotionally you can feel unworthy or judged or even distant from it, right? And that's because once again, we unknowingly project our earthly father's traits onto God. And that means that you subconsciously believe that God or source is now distant and judgmental or cold, or maybe expects perfectionism, just like your father did. And then for us spiritual seekers, holding this belief can really block your connection to source and your ability to confidently shine your light out in the world. Because once again, if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel guided, if you don't feel protected, then how are you going to want to do that either? And I have a perfect example to share with everyone. I have this client and she's an intuitive healer, she's a medium. And when she came to me, she said she didn't want to be in the world right now. She said she felt like the energy was just so heavy and she didn't feel safe in her feminine energy. And I asked her, where did this come from? Or, what recently triggered her? Like you said, what event happened? And she told me that she was watching a political hearing on women's rights on CNBC, right? And that there was a group of male politicians who were just dismissing women's concerns and constantly interrupting a female speaker. And she said she found herself extremely triggered by this. And, and her words were, well, I know I'm supposed to rise above it all, but I really am flooded with grief and rage, and that she just didn't feel spiritually safe. And we gently explored why she felt that way. She realized that those men on TV actually reminded her of her father. And that's because those men, to her had the same cold voice and the need for control, right? As she saw them going back and forth. And so for her, more of her memories were coming up to the surface. And she would remember how her father would tell her that she was too emotional and too sensitive, and how he would shut her down when she tried to express how she felt. And by watching those men, she realized she just felt like a child all over again, just that helpless feeling. And so even though she had done a lot of spiritual work, she had been around this healing journey for quite a while, she now realized how much of her journey was around working around her father wound instead of actually healing it. And so with all of those insights, she was able to really see even how, when she told me I try to rise above it all, that's actually a spiritually bypassing, right? It's a childhood coping mechanism of trying to be, once again, like that quiet, good girl or spiritual daughter who doesn't rock the boat, basically. And so now with these insights, we were really able to connect her with her divine loving self and with her inner child to heal her father wound. And once we did this, then she no longer saw it as a block to her spirituality, but actually more as a doorway to it. And so, like we were just sharing, I know personally for me, I did, and how healing the father wound really impacted my relationship with Source. And Shefali, I don't know if you have found that to be the same for you or not.
I guess I'm still working on the father.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, and that happens. I feel like we go through stages, right? But for
Yeah.
me, that was really new. And what I'm about to tell you now about exactly how the father wound is connected, to God and Source, I'm going to break it into 3 crucial insights for us. I feel like this is what starts to develop or falls into us as we are on our spiritual journey. And I just feel like, when we have this perception of God, right, and we base it off of our earthly father's traits, that becomes the unconscious blueprint for how we relate not only to God, but to masculine energy and to authority and to power. And so this becomes really apparent for us, like I said, as we progress on our spiritual journey. And I really do feel like there's 3 really crucial insights that develop. And the first one is that you come to realize that your earthly father is often your first God, right? And that's because as children, we instinctively look to our parents, especially the father figure, as being the provider and the protector, that ultimate authority figure. One of my clients said he was the judge in her home, right? Her mom never had a voice. It was really just her dad. And for others, they can describe their father as being their guide or their mentor through life, right? But if we had a father who was emotionally absent or unpredictable or even abusive or just simply unavailable, right? Then we can often come to the conclusion now that love is conditional, that power is to be feared, right? And that you must earn love, or you must earn safety, or you must earn approval, right? It's not just given to you. You feel like you always have to earn it in some way. And then that becomes a subconscious template that we use to relate to God and to divine masculine energy. And once again, just to kind of help people see how this may play out, I had another client of mine who's an angel healing practitioner and a deeply intuitive empath, right? So she could easily love others and be there for them. But when it personally came to herself, she really struggled with feeling good enough to receive love and even connection, right? So even though she was trying to be there for others, she didn't necessarily feel that connected to people. And even spiritually, she felt disconnected from God. And so she would make comments like, I believe in God and I believe in spirit, but it just feels really far away from me, right? Even when I call it in, it feels it's more than an arm's distance, is how she would tell me. And as we began to work together, she had this memory come up of being 6 years old, where she was staring out the window. It was her birthday. And she said she was waiting for her dad to come pick her up. She said she waited for hours and hours and he never came. And so in her mind that day, she created beliefs and assumptions, because once again, she's a child, right? That if he doesn't come for me, then maybe I'm not worth showing up for, that I don't matter, that she couldn't trust anyone, right? And that love, even though it's supposed to be pure and strong, was actually really unreliable. And so over time, then she came to believe that God must be the same, that he must be distant and silent, just like her father was, and that maybe ultimately she didn't matter to him either. And it's really interesting because once she came to this awareness, this realization that her father was actually her first experience of love and of power and of authority, then ultimately her first God, right? Then we were able to really work on her separating the image of God with her experience with her father, right? And that allowed her to rebuild the trust and reconnect with the divine, but this time not through fear or absence, but actually through deep love and connection. And that was something that she really, really wanted. The second insight that I feel like really comes in for a lot of us on our spiritual journey is that the father wound distorts our connection to the divine. And that's because an unhealed father wound often leads us to struggle with receiving love, right? All of a sudden, if we don't feel worthy of it, it's really hard to bring in all that yin energy, all that feminine energy into us. And because, growing up as a child, love always felt conditional, right? So we kept trying to perform for love instead of just being able to receive it. And when you can't receive love, then you end up feeling disconnected, right? Disconnected from your loved ones, disconnected from source, disconnected from divine masculine energy. And once again, you're now trying to earn a connection with God. And so, some of my clients will say things like, oh, I meditate for an hour a day, or I chant for an hour a day, right? They give me this whole list and I tell them, well, you're trying to earn. It's like this checklist, like, okay, now do I get the gold star? I know in our last talk, we talked about the gold stars, right? That's what we're looking for. And when this happens, I find that you fall into spiritual perfectionism, where you feel like you have to constantly prove that you're good enough, or thinking that you have to do more or be more in order to be worthy of spiritual love. And when that happens, then it's like this whole domino effect, right? You start to what I call is chronic overgiving, right? Where we give so much of ourselves that now we feel burnt out in our own spiritual work. And then lastly, I feel like we end up feeling, or I should say, having a fear being punished by God, or confuse God's presence with pressure instead of peace. And that's because we always feel like God is slightly disappointed in us. And when this happens, it feels like now we can have a distrust in spiritual leadership. And I know for one of my clients, like she really felt this way. Her father was respected and admired at their church. And behind closed doors, she would tell me that he was really cold and emotionally distant and only spoke up to correct her. And her words were, if she failed. Okay, so she told me, if I failed in some way, especially spiritual things, his disappointment felt even more magnified for her because he would tell her things like, you didn't just let me down, you let God down. And she would just say how that like pierced her soul, like that just really shook her faith. And so she told me, I believe in God, but I just can't connect with him. She says, I try to pray, and every time I close my eyes, I just feel judged instead of feeling held and loved. And so when I asked her, when you pray, who are you talking to? And at first, that question kind of stumped her, until she realized that her God had her father's face and her father's voice, and ultimately her father's silence. And that awareness that she wasn't actually praying to God really changed everything for her. She realized that she was just reenacting a childhood trauma where she was trying to reach a love that just always felt out of reach for her. And so once again, we started working with her inner child and her divine loving self to help heal the father wound. And once she was able to do that, that changed not only, how she saw her dad, but it also changed how she saw God. And for the first time, she really felt like God was able to see her and really have that connection. And so, I have one more insight for you. I don't know if there's something you want to say about that, or you want me just to share it. We'll share
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
So the third insight is that how healing the father wound actually strengthens your connection to God. And so as you begin to reparent your inner child and heal the father wound, then you no longer feel like you have to prove your worth or perform for love or project your earthly father's traits onto God. And then you're actually able to open the door to having a clearer and more direct connection to source, but one that feels really safe and unconditionally loving and nurturing. And I find that you can also develop now a relationship with power where strength is no longer, we'll say like scary to you. It just feels more sacred, right? It feels like your own divine worth. And then you can begin to trust your spiritual path more instead of feeling punished or lost. Because I'll hear that a lot of times, that people feel lost or they feel like God's punishing them on their journey. And now you come to the realization that you're always being guided and protected. And when you heal the father wound, you really start to have a more balanced relationship with the divine masculine and the divine feminine energies, right? They don't quite feel like they're so out of alignment anymore. And when they do feel balanced to you, now you're able to feel held and loved and supported from the divine in ways that you never felt possible. And so for me, Shefali, this is what spiritual reparenting would look like and why I feel it's so important to heal the father wound.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is such a wonderful conversation, and it's so enlightening to see how much the father wound has been impacting our lives, right? And our connection with Source, God, Creator. And so yeah, I've just been like contemplating and looking at it and within myself, and how it has been showing up. And yeah, this is such a powerful topic. I mean, it's like I don't know if you can see all the comments in the chat from the people who are commenting about their experiences with their fathers or father figures, and the types of father wounds that they are carrying still to this day, right? And that has been impacting their lives, their relationships, right, their connection with Source. And it's what comes to me is like like what a shame, but at the same time, it's everything is happening for us, right? For us to know ourselves, for us to make different choices, for us to learn and grow. Um, so it's not bad. Nothing is bad, but it's just it's still disappointing a little bit.
Well, yeah, yeah. And as we talk about the healing journey right now, I'm going to give people some ways to begin healing the father wound, right? And it is about, well, it is about acknowledging what you went through, right?
Mhm.
And not trying.
Without blame and judgment on anybody's part. So no blame, no judgment on anybody's part, because that keeps you in the resistance and in that energy still. If you go into blame and
Yeah.
stuff like that,
Well, it'll keep you in the 3D, right? And what
for
we want
sure.
everyone to know is that, you're here to heal yourself. It's not about anybody else, right? So a lot of times we
Yep.
focus so much on the outside or the external. And my job is to help people really look back into their own hearts, right? To know how precious you truly are and to start to heal yourself, right? From a place of love and compassion. And when you do that,
Yeah.
all that other stuff really just starts to fall away, right? It doesn't hold the same weight and the significance. So when I do a healing journey with someone, when we have a session, we're clearing the emotional charge, right? I don't try to deny or tell people to reinvent their childhood or anything like that. We really are clearing the emotional charge from whatever experience they went through so that they reclaim more of themselves, they get more of their energy back, and that way they can start to live the life from that space. And then you'll notice that those things don't matter anymore, right? Because they don't hold the same weight. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. It's definitely about clearing that emotional charge so that you're not staying in that energy anymore.
Right.
Um, and once you do it, it automatically gets released. It's not like you have to then do something else. No, it's like because you get the aha, you get the wisdom, right? And that charge is no longer there, so you're free of it. Really, is what it is.
Exactly. I tell people it's like learning how to drive a car, right? You can just keep sitting in the car forever, and until someone tells you this is a key and this is how you turn it and this is drive, you know, and that can
Yeah.
never be taken away from you, because now you'll always know how to move forward, right? You'll never
Yeah.
feel stuck again because you will have the tools. You'll know that it's all within you. And so would you like me to
Absolutely.
share now a little bit about how we began healing the father wound then?
Yes, please.
Right. So when it comes to healing the father wound, I always say that there's really three key parts that I personally work with. And the first part is really to acknowledge and feel the wound, just like we were talking about. You know, healing really does begin when we have honest reflection, right? So we're not trying to deny anything. We're not trying to blame anyone either, though. And we're just acknowledging the experience that your soul went through. As you do this, you allow yourself to name the pain, right? So once again, we're not trying to dismiss it or make light of it. So whether you felt abandoned, I saw someone wrote in here about being abandoned, right? Or you felt criticized or neglected, whatever it was for you, go ahead and name it, right? Allow yourself to do that and to really feel your feelings around it instead of pushing them away. And as you do this, I want you to give yourself permission to grieve the father you needed but didn't have growing up. And that's really important because you're still acknowledging the pain that you went through. And I want everyone to remember that you can't heal what you don't allow yourself to feel. Right? You can't put things in a box and just pretend it's going to go away, because it's still going to live inside of you. And then it festers and it grows, and that can turn into a really unhealthy physical symptom later in life, right? And we don't want that. The second part involves inner child healing. So for me, one of the most transformative things that I've done and what I guide my clients through is inner child work. And that's when we go back to all those moments where we felt unseen or unheard or unworthy or unloved, right? And we don't go back to relive them, but just to meet our younger selves there. And when you do that, then you allow yourself to feel all the feelings that you weren't allowed to feel back then, and to say all the things that we wanted our fathers to say to us that they didn't. And then when we do that, something sacred really happens within us, right? Our inner child begins to feel seen and heard and starts to trust again. And when your inner child begins to trust, then you can begin to heal and receive love, right? If they don't feel safe, then that's never going to happen. And when we become open, right, to healing in this part, then we begin to know the truth and really start to see and hear God differently. And we can stop really fearing punishment and judgment from what I like to say is God the Father. And I say it that way because I grew up in a religious household, right? So you wanted to be, even when my aunt passed away a few years ago, the pastor said, oh, she was a God-fearing woman. And I was thinking like, oh gosh, that was just how I was entrained growing up. So, for me, I'm going to say we stop fearing judgment and punishment from God the Father and really start feeling deep, unconditional love from Source. And the third part that I feel is important is we activate our divine loving self. And the divine loving self, once again, is that higher consciousness part of you that's directly connected to God. It's the part of you that's sacred and eternal and holds so much unconditional love and compassion and kindness for you. And it becomes the inner father within you that reparents the little one inside of you with so much pure divine love. And when you and your divine loving self meet those younger parts that still feel either small or unworthy or invisible, and you really let them know that you see them, right? They matter to you, just how precious they are, right? And that they're safe with you now. Those are some really key points to tell your inner child. And when you're able to do this, then you become the father that you needed. You're now the one that's present, the one that's loving, the one that's nurturing, the one that's protecting, right? All the things that you wanted as a child. And then that opens a door for you to have a really deep love for yourself as you create healthy boundaries and you increase your faith and trust in yourself and in the divine. And so, Shefali, for me, those are the three crucial things when healing the inner child and the father wound.
Yeah, really relevant for all of us, I think. And it's something that, you know, it's like I think we all need it. It's like some of us who may have been stuck on this journey for a while, this is maybe the tool, resource, support that we need to, really get through it, because we've done everything else, right? Like we've done everything else, right? But we've never really looked at this piece. So I think this is so important for all of us. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. We do so many other things in order not to feel the pain and not to go there. But really, that is the doorway to healing.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I would definitely invite people to do this work. It's so
Yes,
rewarding.
absolutely. So I know we're going to do a group meditation in just a few minutes, right? Um, but before that, do you want to just do quickly go over the package? I mean, it's very simple and easy, but let's do that, and then we'll do the meditation, and then if there's any questions, we can take a few questions, maybe.
Of course. Yeah.
Let me see where we are. Hold on. But yeah, this is so fascinating. I'm loving this conversation. It's giving me so many ahas, opening up my eyes to something that I, you know, didn't think of. So, so Jennifer's package is package A is the Father Wound Workshop, which is coming up June 14th. So that is the weekend of Father's Day, right?
It is. It is. Yeah. So the Father Wound Healing Workshop, during this workshop, what we're going to do is you're going to meet your inner child in a really safe and loving way and really begin to reparent them with compassion. You're also going to be able to connect with your divine loving self. So once again, that wise, unconditionally loving presence within you that holds all of your healing. And you're going to experience a guided tapping, group meditation, and journaling session to really help you release your father's energy. And this is something we really haven't talked too much about today because this talk would be really long, but think about it. It's generation to generation of energies being passed down. And when you were born, you took in your mother's and your father's energy. And so it'll be part of giving them back their energy and reclaiming yours again, because we end up leaving it with other people. It'll also help you to shift emotional patterns, to restore wholeness, and just really open you up for a space of deep self-love. And just like Shefali was saying, this workshop really would be for you if you are someone who often feels like you're not enough, even when you know you're doing your best, or you've been doing the inner work for a long time now, but you still feel really stuck in repeating, I'll just call them emotional patterns. And you really want to show up for yourself with love and compassion now, and not from a place of criticism and judgment. Um, or you just really want to feel truly nurtured and held and safe within yourself. And like I say, you're really ready to heal those generational and ancestral patterns and strengthen your connection with the divine. And one of my phrases I always tell people is, really coming back home to your heart and to your soul. And so if any of that sounds good to you, then yes, I would invite you to join me for the Father Wound Healing Workshop that will be on Saturday, June 14th. So it is the weekend of Father's Day. It'll be at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern. I believe it's 9 p.m. Universal. And it will be on Zoom. And if you can't attend live, a replay will be available to you. And so package A will include the live workshop, the recording, and you'll receive a PDF of all the journal prompts that we go through. And then for package B, that would include the Father Wound Healing Workshop. It'll include a one-to-one session with me. And this is about 60 minutes on Zoom, or if you prefer by phone. And we can go over healing any aspect that you want around the father wound or anything else that may be showing up in your life. And then as a bonus, you'll also receive the recording of the Mother Wound Healing Workshop that I did earlier this year. And so those are the two packages that I wanted to offer your beautiful community.
Awesome. Thank you. And of course, there's some wonderful testimonials from people who have worked with Jennifer. Please check those out. A much fuller bio. And again, these two packages, package A, there is no payment plan available as it is only $35. And package B, there is a payment plan available. And of course, if you are an Inner Circle member, please use your gift code as well. Okay, so wonderful. I think this is going to be so helpful for people. Jennifer, thank you so much for offering it and opening up my eyes to, you know, something that I was not in my awareness. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. All
All
right.
right, so go ahead. Yep, we're going to do a group healing meditation. Is there anything that we need to, have an intention of or anything like that, or just be open to receiving
Yeah,
and letting go?
yes, open to receiving, and just remember that there really is nothing to do. Just set your intention that you're going to receive the healing that you need to today, and just really hold yourself with lots of love and compassion. And so, with that, then I invite everyone here now and those who are listening to the replay to go ahead and close your eyes and just give yourself this moment really to connect with your heart, to connect with your divine loving self and with your inner child. And all I want you to do is set your intention and just give yourself permission to really feel into this healing meditation, knowing that your divine spiritual team is holding sacred space for you now. And so let's go ahead and begin by taking a few deep breaths in through your nose and slowly exhale through your mouth. And just allow your body to soften. I want you really to feel the weight of your body being held by Mother Earth, knowing that there's nothing to fix and nothing to do. Just be in this moment and let your breath be your anchor. And now gently place your hands over your heart, and I want you to feel your own warmth. I want you to feel your presence, knowing that you are here and that you are safe. And now, with your next breath, I just want you to notice in your mind's eye to imagine yourself walking into the garden of your heart. And as you walk into the garden, your divine spiritual team is there to greet you with open and loving arms as they welcome you back home. And in this space, you just feel how truly loved you are. So take a moment right now and just breathe in all of this love. And as you do this, your divine spiritual team is going to gently guide you to look behind you. And off in the distance, you'll see a small child sitting on a bench. And this child is you. I want you to notice how old they are. Now, for some of you, I can see that you're 3 years old. For others, you look about 6 or 9, or maybe even older. Just notice what age appears for you. And I really want you to notice them. Look at their body, look at their eyes, even look at their posture. And just notice, what are they feeling? Are they feeling sad? Are they feeling lonely? Are they feeling worried? Or maybe even curious? But just take a deep, gentle breath in and allow yourself to feel what they're feeling. And as you do this, then I want you to slowly approach them now. And when you reach them, I want you to kneel beside them. And I want you to say softly, "I'm so sorry you've been alone for so long. I see you now. I know you've been carrying so much. You never should have had to hold on to all of that pain. But you did, and you are so brave." And then I want you just to sit with them. And if they allow you, you can hold them in your arms. And I want you to let them know that you're not alone anymore. I want you to tell them that I'm here now and I will never leave you. You are so precious to me. And just notice how they look and feel as you tell them this. And give yourself a moment to just really recognize the difference in their energy field. And as you take your next in breath, you'll begin to notice that the energy in your heart starts to light up and expand. And you can feel a new energy entering into this space. And out of the corner of your eye, you begin to see a really bright light approach you. This is your divine loving self. Once again, the highest, wisest, most loving aspect of you. A sacred blend of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. A guardian, a healer, a protector, a cosmic parent. And they step forward with eyes full of light and unconditional love for you. And I want you to feel their energy wrap around you and your inner child like a golden shield of peace. And your divine loving self tells you, you are safe now. You are seen and you are deeply loved, not for what you do, but for simply being who you are. You were never too much. You were never too sensitive, and you were always worthy of being protected. And I want you just to allow those words now to permeate into all the cells of your body. As you are awakening more into your divine truth, into your divine knowing, activating your original blueprint. And now your divine loving self is going to place a hand on your inner child's back, transmitting love and peace and truth as a beautiful golden light starts to enter into every cell of their being. And take a moment now and just really allow this golden light to dissolve all the old thoughts of I wasn't enough, that I don't matter, that I have to earn love, that I have to be quiet to be safe, and any other unhelpful pattern that you know that you have been running, that you were too sensitive. Just allow all of that to be washed away as they are no longer needed. And notice as you do this, how your energy body starts to light up even brighter and brighter. And I want you to bring your inner child into your arms again. I want you to hold them really close to your heart. And with your next in-breath, I want you to let them merge with you if they are ready. And as they return to your heart, or if they choose to stand beside you, I want you now to place your hands over your heart, and I want you to tell yourself, I choose to father myself with love and with presence and with truth. I am safe in my sensitivity. I am safe in my power. I no longer carry the pain that was never mine. I am the love that I have always been seeking. I am pure love. I am pure light. I am pure consciousness. And really allow those words to just ripple throughout your entire being. Breathe them in and let them settle like soft light in your body. And now your divine loving self is going to give you a really big embrace. And they whisper that it's time to go back, but that you can visit at any time. And with your next breath in, I want you to feel your hands on your heart. And then bring your awareness gently back into your body and into the space that you're in. And when you're ready with no rush, you can open your eyes and come back to me. And as you're coming back, I just want to tell everybody here that once again, I want to remind you that healing the father wound isn't about blaming anyone. It really is about finding your truth and your voice and your power. And it's not just about emotions, it's also about spirituality. And when you connect with true divine love, then you're really able to feel safe inside ourselves again. So even if your earthly father didn't show you love, please know that the divine never stopped. And I invite you to open your heart and really feel the truth of that, that the divine sees you and loves you and walks with you every moment of your day. And so if this conversation touched you today, I would love for you to join me for the Father Wound Healing Workshop and or have a one-on-one session with me. I'd be honored to be your guide on your healing journey. And Shefali, I don't know if you would like to share your experience now or.
Oh, that was beautiful. It was exactly what I needed. It was just absolutely perfect. And I didn't even know I needed it until we had this call today. It's just it's magical how things work out, you know. So no, it was absolutely, it was so sweet, and it was so nice, and so expansive. So how was it for all of you who are here still having experienced that process? It's interesting. I'm so vulnerable on these calls, right? But I had a dream this morning or yesterday morning, and in the dream it said, the message was that I was resisting my higher self. So I'm like, okay. So then I've been asking, okay, what does my higher self want me to know, kind of thing? What does my higher self want me to know? And then we did this process, and I was like, oh, it was perfect.
Oh,
It
I'm
was
so
like,
glad that was relevant for you. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was about that, reconnection to the, divine loving self, which is also the higher self, source, God, creator kind of thing. So it was beautiful. So yeah, it was perfect timing. I love how things happen like that. Cindy says, thank you. That was beautiful. Christine says, my body wants to sleep. Yes, for sure. And, if you are, if you can take a short little nap. If it's nighttime, like in Europe, you can go to sleep right now. But be with the energy, stay with the energy, that loving presence, for yourself. Carol says, that was so great, very helpful for me. Awesome, good. And I saw my inner child as a little girl, like 5 or 6, and she was hesitant at first, right? But then it was so beautiful. And um Andrea says, thank you both for this experience. This message was wonderful, and the meditations were emotional and healing. Still feeling movement. Awesome. Much love and gratitude. Thank you. Good. I'm glad. And that's the thing. Still be in that energy, still feel that presence. It's always there with us, right? But we focus on other things, and then we get, distracted, right? But the presence of source, God, is always with us all the time. Um,
Well, definitely. And, as we're doing the meditation, like someone saying, their body wants to sleep, definitely, like you said, allow yourself to sleep, drink lots of water. Of course, as we're doing the meditation, I was running divine light codes through it, right? So much is being transmitted through my voice and through the words, but it's really the energy, right? And so just know that your divine spiritual team had the perfect healing for you, that they hold the sacred space for you as you were connecting and healing within. So, yes, drink lots of water, get some rest. What I like to say is we like to send out those energetic emails, right? Because as your vibration changes, we want to make sure that your pets and your plants and the people respond to you, right? Because we're constantly changing. So,
yeah, always. And I received a message through that whole process, or awareness of how I had always been seeking or searching for love in all my relationships, and then they showed me, all sorts of different people, and it's just, it was interesting. So just good to know that. So searching for love outside, even though it's always inside, right?
oh,
But
and so many of us have done that, right? We're looking on
yeah.
the side, and I had to clear up, because I did feel abandoned by my father, and he left when I was 4 years old. And so there was a lot of it that I had to do for myself, even to feel angry at God, right? And that was something. Anger is not an easy emotion for me to feel. It wasn't. And so I had to acknowledge and accept all of my emotions in order for me to truly feel connected to God. And that's when I had to realize that my version of God was still tied to my father and to my religious upbringing. And so I
Hmm.
search of who was God for me. And so a lot of times I use the word source because God felt too loaded of a word, right? From my, and so that was part of the working, right? When you start to notice the resistance for you to connect to your higher self, or the resistance for me to say the word God as I got older, right? That we need to heal those parts of us, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Carol says my inner child was I can never say that word properly, disheveled, and sad, about 3 or 4 years old. In the end, loving and receptive. Oh, good. Awesome. So, so then the healing has taken place, right?
Yes.
So that your inner child was willing to receive the love. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, and sometimes they're
Yeah.
not ready yet. So like I said, whether they were able to merge in your heart or whether they need to stand next to you, right? Because you have to build that trust. If they've been alone for so long, or if you turned on yourself and you were as judgmental and critical as someone was to you, and you kind of bullied them, right? They might not want to enter your heart right away if they don't feel safe. And so part of it is a healing journey of connecting back with your inner child. And then there will be some parts that may rebel like a teenager, right? Not
Mhm.
sure if they could really trust you. And that 3, 4-year-old might be like, yes, I'm going to jump right in. So just be really patient and loving with yourself on this journey.
Yeah, and you might want to do this process again for yourself. Like give it a day or two and then do it again just to feel that love again, and maybe your inner child will be a little bit more receptive now that they know that, oh yeah, she said I'll always be with you. So okay, she is here with me again. So awesome. Maybe she means it, right? So
Exactly.
something to look at.
Awesome.
Yeah. Anything else coming up for anyone today? Because this was a powerful topic, and it may have triggered you in certain ways, and some emotions may still be coming up. But again, realize that when those triggers are coming up, when those feelings are coming up, it's okay, right? Allow yourself to feel it. Allow yourself to grieve. I loved what Jennifer said earlier. Allow yourself to grieve the father that you needed that wasn't there, he was not what you needed. But so grieving that, is going to be helpful to releasing that energy, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, we
So
hold it in. We're trying to think about it. You push your shoulders in. You're holding it in your lungs, right, which is in your heart space. And we try not to cry, right?
mhm.
Yeah, but that still lives
Yeah,
within us. And ultimately, over time, it festers into a physical symptom, and that's definitely what you don't want, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any last words of wisdom for us? Anything that we can do between now and the Father's Day weekend? um Again, please do, if you can join the workshop, that'd be great. If you can do the workshop and do the personal session with Jennifer, that's even better. But anything else that we can do to help heal our inner child and heal this father wound in the meantime?
yeah, I would say just be really loving, compassionate with yourself. Like you said, Shefali, they can go back and listen to this replay on YouTube or on your podcast, right? Spend some
Mhm.
time really connecting with that inner child, that younger part of you. Ask them what they need. Ask them what they needed from your father that they didn't get and what you can start giving yourself now. And, once again, if you can join for the workshop, I would love to have you. We said we're going to be giving back your father's energy. We'll be releasing some ancestral and generational energies that we also absorbed, right? Coming in and really reclaiming those parts of you, connecting with your inner child and claiming back your power and your love and your essence so that you can feel more whole and complete. So,
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be so powerful and so helpful for all of us. So thank you for offering that. Yes, I will have the recordings out in a little while, so please do look out for those. And there's no more calls this week, other than our inner circle call, which is tomorrow. So please do join me for that if you are an inner circle member. Other than that, I think we're good. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Jennifer. This was brilliant. I loved it. So powerful, so relevant, so needed. So it's so helpful for people. So yeah, I'm like, this was great. So thank you.
well, thank you for having me. And as always, I'm sending everyone here so much love from my heart to yours. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for all your questions, comments, and feedback in the chat. So thank you for playing with us and being present with us. And until next time, may you continue to be blessed with an abundance of joy, peace, love, happiness, prosperity, and radiant health. Sending you all so much love and blessings. Bye for now. Bye, everyone. Thank you.